An interesting choice for a map like this. Something that I don't remember the last time I saw in a competitive setting for Highview. He's going to pull out the HRE. Now, it's peculiar to me because, you know, Divine still has potentially a third map if he loses here. HRE is a pretty effective choice on a decent amount of the maps. I'm not sure how many water maps they have in the rotation. In fact, let me just check the pool. So when it comes to War Chief Club, number 14, the map pool was Colder and Dry Arabia, Golden Heights, King of the Hill, Wetlands. Wait, what? Okay, I don't mean to call it out, but Adico, I think you need to get on the map selection here because the Wikipedia is wrong. That's for sure. Because we just had Gorge, we're now in Highview. I guess the map choice is just whatever the damn well hell you choose. I don't know. I don't know how many maps there are. I mean, judging by like some of the remaining choice though, like HRE could have slotted into a few of them. I feel like I used to watch this though. Like so for those that don't know, Divine DFP has been in the game for a long time. He's been playing it since basically release. And I'm pretty sure last year there was a period where he was running HRE regular on this map. I think the Muslim was also doing it a little bit at the start of the year. So there is some potential for HRE to crack here. But you are, I'd say, on a timer. This seems like the type of map where you want to make a Burgrave play off of a Deer play. The problem is, like, HRE doesn't naturally want to come out of his base, right? He wants to stay at home. So we don't necessarily see the strongest of Burgrave timings on maps like this compared to ones where you get backwards spawning deers that are right next to your TC, like, say, Hill and Dale. People complain about the Relic spawns. I would say the Relic spawns are fairly balanced, actually. They're really balanced. So Central Relic, this is the true Central Relic, by the way. They're neck and neck. Same distance, actually, for these two relics from each player's base, and they both got retracted relics. I would actually give a slight edge to Divine DFP because his initial relic, his safe relic, is actually safe. It's between multiple wood lines, and you can just weave into it. Meanwhile, if Matisse goes for this relic, Stealth Forest, you know, the lack of vision could kill you in this area with the initial grab. Something that can be an edge for Matisse is the fact that he's playing Roost, right? So if you go for a fast castle timing, you will have access to the Warrior Monks that will be able to move out ahead of time. And if Divine DFP doesn't want to go for a multi-TC build, he won't have additional prelates to work with before you tech up into Castle Age. That being said, with the deer detail I mentioned, maybe there's a world in which Divine DFP goes for an extra prelate ahead of time to play out into that. And one thing I am going to be checking on is the sheep situation. Yeah, so they've both got the same amount of sheep right now. Really important to see who grabs the rest of this. Because if Divine wants to do anything but a Regnitz play, he's going to need probably 12 sheep to make it somewhat sustainable. Realistically, though, this should be a Regnitz play. And that's something that can play to Matisse's advantage. If he builds a few knights to control the midfield and then only delays his castle age slightly compared to Divine DFP, he'll have the initial units in place to stop Divine from getting relics. And then he can rush out himself when he goes to the Rus Warrior Monks instead. Spawns-wise, Goldwood. It's not a bad one, actually. It is going to be Stone. I mean, it's Divine DFP. This guy loves TCs. So this is going to change the script a little. Remember that detail I said about the fact you won't have the initial prelates in place to pick up the relics? Strip that detail away. When you go for a secondary TC as the HRE, you're able to afford additional prelates because it doesn't hurt your production as much. And you also want to be building additional prelates anyway because when you play one town center, it's all about condensed eco around an Archon Chapel. When you play multi-TC, it's all about exploiting pocket areas to the maximum with the prelates. And what we're probably going to see from Divine is an attempt to drop a TC. I'd say in the Stealth Forest between these two deer stacks would be perfect. It would secure a wood line, a very big wood line at that, and you'd have a close enough access to both deer sites. He might feel a little bit reluctant to be that greedy, though. Remember the amount of time it takes you to build, the fact that HRE players don't build any defensive units quite often this early on. So instead, he might just settle for a TC right next to the wood line or just pass it on this deer stack here. I gotta say, though, I'm not the biggest fan of this 2TC play. Because if this gets scouted out, which you're up against a Roost player, there's a high probability it will be scouted out. I do think he just goes for a few knights, blocks you off the deer by constantly raiding in, and shuts down your timings. Because the other thing you have to keep in mind is like there's a higher burden for food gathering on the HRE player now with this second TC, as you're spending double the amount of food on villager production. You know, it sounds like a nitpicky thing, but like if you're being raided and you aren't you're idling, and especially on the food source, not only can you not necessarily afford the villages you're building permanently, or consistently rather, you also are idling alongside that. Like, it essentially just strips away the advantage entirely. Let's see how he wants to play this. Wow. Okay, that's even more defensive than I expected. So this really shows Divine's intent. He's going for a farm boom. So double TC into immediate farm setups. I feel like every move I'm seeing for Divine, his Castle Age timing gets slower, no? Right? Like, everyone who plays a lot of HRE will know what I'm talking about here, where, you know, you got Naked Fast Castle, which is just, like, ridiculously quick. Then you've got secondary TC, which slows you down by about a minute and a half. Then you've got double TC with farms instead of, like, deer stack, which brutalizes your timing. Like, it gives such a big window of opportunity to your opponent. Matisse might see this and say, I actually don't need to come kill you now. I'm just going to be greedy myself. And he's doing exactly that. It's going to be secondary TC play. Someone we don't see as frequently out the roost anymore. Looks like he did gather the full amount, so did not use the Golden Gate at all. This is good, because it gives him backup options to go for a faster Castle Age timing as a result. And he is on the deer. This is exactly what I wanted to see out of HRE on the other side. But Divine, honestly, I still don't. I don't know, man. I think whenever you... the benefits of going secondary TCs HRE is you don't have to do this detail. Whenever you play one TC HRE, you have to build farms. Most games, right? Because it prolongs, and you eventually, like, I can't come out my base because every villager is incredibly valuable. It's like I'm holding diamonds. And everything's about Arkan because I can't afford more prelates before Castle Age. But when you do two TCs, like, that doesn't matter anymore. For a start, the second TC should be securing new resources. I don't think it is. Like, maybe he's a bit paranoid about his gold. I can kind of understand that, but you know, maybe this TC should have been dropped here. Because then you could build a mill and gather on the deer and then retreat whenever your opponent came close. And it's not a small detail, folks. Like, you're missing out on 2,400 food that doesn't require a farm. You spend 50 on a mill compared to spending 75 wood on, sure, a permanent source of food, but the initial setup time sets you back hard. Wait, did I say 2,400? That's not right. 2,450. There you go. Even more than what I said. And good lord, Matisse wants even more. Look at this play. Love the read. Matisse understands too well. He's in the HRE base. Usually HRE players don't build early aggressive units anyway, but he sees a secondary TC. So he understands that he can get away with pocket economies, and there's nothing that his opponent can do about it. Another brilliant detail is actually the location of this ball. It's a naturally defended point on the east side, so he can just drop a Wooden Fortress north, and there's not really much Divine can do about this. So Loverboy coming in with, we're playing a little bit of trivia here. If you have full pop and several one-space units in production, which unit will be produced first once a space is given? First produced, highest value, or just random? So the way that the code works is all the commands are basically played out sequentially. Like, it's impossible to have simultaneous, like, pulls on code unless you're playing off of different cores entirely, which... for what we're talking about, you wouldn't be. Like, the script would be running on the same core. So there's a queue log order. And actually, the way that should work is whatever got added to the queue first should get priority, right? What the order should be simply the order in which they were logged. So to answer your question, I mean, I haven't tested it, but by, like, coding logics, unless they've got some weird behavior in there, it should be whatever unit you prepped first will be the one to get priority on spawn. Knights. We'll move across in time. So Divine DFP, this is quite problematic. He's only got this one gold stack, and he has to play northern corner, but he hasn't protected himself yet. Regnitz is underway, but Matisse with a big advantage while we were nerding out there. Abbey of Trinity is already coming. And remember, Divine DFP has not built additional prelates. Oh, wow. I mean, everything he's done is greedy, yet somehow the most greedy detail is the lack of prelates. Does Matisse know about the... So he knows about the Eastern Relic. Yeah, if Matisse just plays... And he's doing exactly that. This is brilliant. Just play East side. Prevent the first Relic from being grabbed, and Divine is just dead on arrival. Right? Like, the crazy part is if you think about the spawn nature, Divine DFP's Relic spawns are great from an aggressive standpoint because you'll be able to grab a lot initially. Problem is he has no map control. So he can't grab anything initially. And instead, Matisse could just come out here, nab the closest in the center, and his next priority should be the one on the far side. The reason you go center first, by the way, is then your Knights and your Scout is just condensed on the east side. There's nothing for Divine to grab west. And thank you, Mowgli's. Appreciate the sub. Welcome to the Swarm, bud. I am getting very worried for Divine. He's got the stables prep, but this is not a quick tech timing. His food and gold feels really stretched. And by the way, the reason his food and gold doesn't look good for a guy who just teched up and only has 6 people working the Regnets is because of the farms. He's had so many people working on wood to get him to this point. It's going to heavily cripple him, Matisse. Probably looks at that and goes, wait, you've only just reached Castle Age? Lamau? Crossbow's already been prepped. Second Warrior Monk about to come out as well. Matisse. Well, there it is. He took the central relic as we talked about. So now you just beeline your Knights onto the east side. You keep a scout in the area. Bring crossbows as well. Like, there's nothing that Divine can do. In fact, Divine, with these walls, it almost feels like it's just forfeiting the existence of these relics. It's almost like he's just built Regnets so you can get healers at this point. Man. So one's already parked. The other one... Okay, so this would be good if there was a Prelate already. Maybe he gets it. I think he's going to get this Relic. Yeah, so it looks like Matisse is backing up. But realistically, Matisse should have just pushed past. Like, the Monk was already coming. There's looking like a wonky play in this situation because he could have easily blocked out all 5 relics. We have to remember, though, we have God Vision, right? That being said, like, you have multi-scouts. I think the reason you aren't seeing Matisse play that full aggro is this one scout here. I think he was worried that Divine might try to gamble on the far side relic, and he doesn't want to give him any. So instead of playing for this harder to get relic, he's securing the safer relic to last. That does mean Divine at least gets 1 relic. However, it's going to be 4 versus 1. Which, especially with the nerfs to Regnets, or rather to relics across the board, which then, you know, indirectly hit Regnets, is not a good place to be. He has at least got 2 TCs, and he's got the farm setting up, but I'm always worried when HRE players play like this, and I think it's a big part of why most HRE players were hard jumping onto the Burgrave build, is that it gave you an ability to play the map, to play out and get some map control in a meta where map control is key to success. Instead, by default, Matisse understood that he had full map. The reason this is important is usually when you want to get map control, you have to do something for it, right? You have to work your ass off to get it. You have to aggro, you have to raid, you have to be present. But because Matisse is playing against double TC condensed HRE, he understands he actually doesn't have to do anything for map control. He can just walk out and take whatever he wants. And that's why in this situation, Matisse is looking vastly ahead. You know, we can talk about the HRE's eco-exploitation device, you know, how quickly they gather things, 40% quicker, in fact. It feels almost moot at this point, though. Because he's moving past the arc and range, and you know he's barely moving prelates out to keep up with this. Like, you see, he's playing on berries. So, sure, you know, you buff up the berries, they're decent, right? You're going to get yourself something like a boar gathering rate. But you know what's even better than a boar, like something like a boar gathering rate? It's an actual boar gathering rate, which is what Matisse had before. And the deer isn't far off that as well. Walls can be blocked. Military advantage clearly with Matisse as well. I like the Langsneck from Divine, a way of potentially recovering. However, I don't like it when you have no counter to crossbows. This is where Divine would most definitely benefit from 1 Maga now. Otherwise, you're going to probably struggle to even utilize the Langsneck correctly. And remember, every Lanks he builds is a heavy burden on his economy because he only has 1 relic. Wait, does he have 1 relic? Where did he put that relic? Am I blind? Okay, it's coming now. I hope it has been banked all this time, because if it only just got picked up, I'm worried. Yeah, so 1 relic. He's building Lanks. Langsneck are not cheap, remember. 100 gold each. Remember, he's only got baby veins behind this. I mean, this is one of the design choices for Highview, right? Is there's a big priority towards gold veins in the center. Why you just can't give map control up for free like this. I love the way that Matisse is carving out his territory now. He says, you can build walls, but I'm going to build wooden fortresses. You know, we both have different approaches to how we dictate our control in these areas, but Matisse's will be more impactful. Will not be finished, so nice job by Matisse to keep an opening. Wooden Fortress most definitely will be complete. TC's now being slaughtered. Only takes a mere 5 shots to blow this thing up, so E-Repair is going to be forced pretty quick. And a second Trebuchet would be good enough to just kill these outright, which is what Matisse has on the way. All 3 Sacred Sites are now under the control of the Roost player. Clash coming. Langsneck need to get in. There are 10 of them. Nice micro bomb Matisse. Notice that he splits up into small groups. Doesn't want to get that cleave power across to the HRE. Crossbows now should be able to clean up. However, left side is bulking fast here. Langsneck count. Still looking reasonable. Last Spearman deterring, keeping the reinforcements away. Notice the staggered formation. Matisse refuses to give it all over. Langsneck also now starting to be cut down as most spears are gone. Great micro from Matisse to ensure that there are no clusters for Divine DFP to use against him. In the end, Divine taking an emphatic victory in this fight. Look at the numbers now. Military pop cap of 3-1 in favor of Matisse. Continues to extend his zonal influence here. Plays onto the ball close to Divine's base. Could even build more racks or archery rangers into this line now. Really cool micro there. Honestly, Matisse, it looks like such a bad fight for him, right, when he loses the front line, but Divine DFP spends so much time running to small groups of melee there in the mid-fight that he doesn't actually min-max his damage at all. And Matisse gets enough time to reset, pulls back the crossbows, and ensures that maybe these Lanks hit 2 crossbows at once, max, which is just simply not good enough. It would be good enough with the second Trebuchet coming out. So this time, 2 will make it to the front line, which means this TC, the TC situation is going to have an advantage now for Matisse. This Divine DFP, E-Repair is going to come off cooldown, but with 2 Trebuchets now showing up, it won't be good enough. In fact, I hope he realizes it's on fire before it's too late. Divine? Okay. Whew. That was actually a lot closer than it looked, because that Trebuchet was about 2 seconds away from pumping. As I said, now with 2 here, like this is just a done. You're going to lose it. I would say that one important detail is that Matisse could probably just like ignore the TC repairs and take out farms, which is really important right now because Divine DFP is past the Prelate buffing range. So having to reboom these farms is actually a really heavy hit to his economy. I just don't know what Divine's plan is at this point, guys. Like, I'm kind of surprised he didn't call it after that fight. He's obviously going for one last Ura. Like, Lang's count is pretty damn high. But I honestly feel like if Matisse just breaks his Spearmen into 2 waves and doesn't, like, you know, line formations them and staggers them, those 2 waves alone will keep the Lanks busy long enough that crossbows win. And the fact that you're relying on Horseman as your second element here when you've already seen Spears crossbow mass on the other side is a bit worrying. But I do at least like the Divine is moving away from anything that enables the crossbows. My problem is this Mangonel detail. Like, I just think back to that fight. If he'd had a Mango when he went out, he would have probably won that fight. Quite convincingly so. Instead, Matisse is looking like he's easily going to force a map number 3 here. This Trebuchet, so much damage really been done. Taking out the outpost, took out the TC. Can easily target these farms now. Divine almost doubled up by the military pop cap and Matisse. Matisse continue to move in now with more wooden fortresses. Notice the walls also going up on the flanks. Doesn't want to give him any way out of this trap. Divine, it might be time to go. Marches his way out. He has no vision as to what he's running. Spears instantly ambush here. He goes straight for the trebuchets. Big mistake. And the crossbows will pick apart any that straggle through. Spearmen are going to keep him busy. Mango's not getting good shots either. Divine DFP playing blind into a stealth forest. The biggest sin of Highview will lead to his defeat here. No way he can win this fight. Lang's going to just Congo lining in. Warrior Monk peels off more horsemen to the side to waste their time. And that, I mean, that should be enough. Divine DFP, there is no way in hell you get out of your base again. Matisse just bodying with numbers at this point. He throws away so many spearmen at the beginning. That's the crazy part. The numbers look so good, but you start to see the downside of massing Langsnick like this. It's range units. This Mango, one Mango was not enough to rule them all. Can't help but feel if Divine maybe had a bit of vision in that fight, there's a better opportunity, or at least he reacts quicker and doesn't lose half of the horsemen instantly. But losing that many meant that there was no counter to the crossbows. Now, when you lose the farms, I think this is pretty much over, right? Divine doesn't have any food behind this. It's farms or go home. Crossbows will now start to push in. And that'll be enough to convince him to call it Divine. No chance to reboom the army and try once more. Instead, he'll have to try his luck on a map number 3. Let's see what he can do, because we're moving in to the deciding match here. Matisse 1, Divine DFP 1. Whoever wins this will make it through to the Grand Finals of the War Chief Club to face off against Koinu, legendary Japanese AoE 4 player, absolute ball-over player. Enjoy seeing him, so looking forward to seeing that clash when we get to it. But first of all, we need to conclude this series. Matisse will be whipping out the French, a civ that he's been becoming very comfortable in these days. Up against a civ that, something we didn't mention from the last one, he's up against a civ that he's very comfortable with and knows very well. Matisse was one of the original HRE grandmasters, as I dubbed them. He knew this civ inside out. In fact, he innovated a lot of the builds. Matisse was one of the guys that really helped kind of plow this civ into what it was. I think it was Hut, and then Matisse also helped innovate the 4 stables Castlage boom that was really popular at the end of 2021. And that kind of knowledge has stuck with him. Like, I'd say Matisse is still one of the scariest HRE players on the field. It's just nowadays he prioritizes Rus and more recently French a lot more to try and diversify his pool. Meanwhile, Divine and DFP on the other side, it's got to be said. I mean, this guy kind of went from one side of the one-dimensional existence to doing it from a different angle, right? Like, for those that don't know, Divine DFP used to be known for Delhi in the herbal medicine days. Then it was French TC boom that was his really big go-to thing when it's popular. And then he moved on the HRE, and he's been hard stuck on the HRE for quite a bit. It has served him well in the past, but maybe the wrong opponent to bring it out against, especially on a map like Dry Arabia, where naturally you would have to lean in favor of the French. So, upping wise, just checking the spawns as well. Divine DF. Oh, wow, that's a really bad gold spawn for an HRE player against French. We'll have to keep an eye on that, because I think that detail is going to decide a lot of this match. Like, he can just get blocked out straight away. If Divine doesn't open with a Rax, he's in big trouble. I'm glad he's already on the wood like this. I hope it's not going to be for more farms in this game. Like, he needs to be a Rax and to 2 to 3 Spearmen immediately. And it looks like he's going to pull back off the gold initially, just to play it safe in that regard. Oh, but no. Are we doing multi-TC again? I believe we are. Like, he's setting up Arcan. Yeah, he's waypoint already. So he genuinely is going to go for another double TC play. Yeah, we got a few. I think we got 1 or 2 pros in chat. Like, correct me if I'm wrong, but this double TC play, it's not. It doesn't feel like the correct approach, right? Like, Matisse is, like, in game 2, he played a really good I'll use your greed against you type strat. I feel like French in this game, on this type of generation, could easily cripple you when you go double TC. Maybe there's some value if he drops the TC here, secures the gold with more stone. I'd prefer he drops the TC forward of his base, but, like, I don't see a world in which you get that 4 TC. Right, School of Cavalry is now being built up. If you try to go for a 4 TC, the Knights will just eviscerate you. We'll see how he wants to play it. Divine 100% needs a Rax on the opener, though. And you guys are correct. Divine did play a lot of Mongols in the early days. I kind of realized, like, we were going through all the periods. Like, he really did kind of follow the trend of what's trendy, shall we say. Mongol outpost rushes into Delhi herbal medicine spam, then on the French TC boom, and that was becoming popular. And then, you know, hopping through to HRE in their Dominion, really. Is it me or did Divine kind of skip Rus? I felt like he skipped a lot of the Rus meta. Not so much, maybe he done a little bit of the Pew Pew Pony, but when we move past the Horse Archers, you know, around the Road to Warlord time and Golden League time, I don't feel like I saw him doing too much Rus there. I think that was actually when he was known more for his French play, if anything. Yeah, Matisse, he already gets the info, so he knows about the secondary TC. Played a bit, yeah, but I don't think it was ever his signature civ or his spam civ, right? I think everyone played a bit of Rus at this point. And I agree. I agree. I'm glad I'm not the only thing in this. Like, you go for this double TC play, you just get killed. Like, my big concern is he's going to drop it in a bad location as well. Like, you secure gold. Maybe if you drop... Okay, this is better. I was about to say, if he drops it here, bad. If he drops it here, he at least secures the wood line. But this is still problematic. Like, Knights can still punish you for this. Matisse, like, the only reason he's not being punished is... What did we say about Matisse? What did he do last game that was brilliant and allowed him to win so easily? He's doing it again. He's playing Divine's Greed against him. Matisse will now go for his own TC. Because I was watching the Tech Cup and noticed 2 people in School of Cavalry. This is why. And the brilliant thing is the issue for Divine is he has to play this matchup by face value. In an ideal world, Divine builds a 4 TC on the gold and the deer. And he doesn't have to build farms. But if you do that against a French player and there is one French Knight coming, you're dead. You just the game is done because you don't want to rush racks, right? Greedy HRE players as they are. So he has to go for a fairly crappy TC, to be honest. Like, it only secures 1 wood line, and you secure the gold vein that probably feels like worst of all the available ones. Like, over here, you would have secured 1 relic guaranteed, plus a big wood line. This one would have got you wood lines plus deer. This is literally the worst option you had for a TC that makes sense, sort of. As a result, on the other side, Matisse says, okay, but I can play my greed, goes to the second town center slightly behind Divine's, but barely, and he plays his out onto the deer stack. And in fact, he still has stone at his disposal if Matisse wants to go for a 3rd TC, or more likely, it's going to set him up to easily go into a castle once he cracks Castle Age for the discounts on his units. Oh, beautiful deer stack there as well. Barely any downtime moving back and forth. Wheelbarrow is also now being prepped. Wheelbarrow that we will not be seeing on the other side, right? We are. Okay, Divine. You understand? Like, in fairness, we talked about this a little bit earlier, that the multi-wheelbarrow approach, the multi-TC approach makes more sense with wheelbarrow compared to one where you don't really want to rush wheelbarrow, you want to rush Castle Age, right? He's a gold rushing his way through this. Not coming his way. I don't know, man. I'm going to go back to what I said. I feel like a broken record, but this really is looking like a repeat of the second map, is that if you play double TC HRE, you shouldn't have to go farms this early. I'm quite adamant at that, and I feel like most high-level players have reached the same conclusion in recent times. There used to be a time where, yeah, you still went for multi-farms, but to be honest, like, that was when people barely understood the 2 TC meta. Now, with 2 TC meta, you know, like, the cool thing with HRE is usually you can get away with slightly more greedy TC placements because of how fast you gather the initial resources, right? So, like, you end up getting what you need for a second TC much quicker than other civs naturally would because the 40% gather rate increase. So usually you're able to snake a TC before your opponent aggroes you off it. But this just was not it. He's got the double broadaxe though. I'll give him credit for that. Maybe something that makes this feel better, because I haven't like completely dissected this build more recently since they made the change to the eco gathering rate techs when they made them cheaper, so more accessible. Maybe this makes it a bit better now that you can get access to the broadaxe much sooner. I'm just still not entirely convinced though. In fact, I'm a little bit worried. Even small details like this, like the fact that stone outcropping is going to block 2 optimal farm drops, doesn't make me feel good. Let's see how it works out. We have got the first knight finally hitting the field from Matisse. Scouts are revealing what's happening. Divine, once again, like, this play, north side, would have been so good. It's crazy as well, because like his in hindsight feeling is if Divine had actually scouted his opponent's base, which should have been his priority, by the way, because his plays, his options to either go farms or deer, he doesn't really need additional sheep that desperately, right? It's more important to get that info. If he had scouted his opponent's base and seen the stone gathering and the slow tech up, he could have gotten away with this 4 TC. I think this is like the second game in a row where I'm having to preach the importance of like vision, right? Even in game 1, there was a lot that Matisse got away with because Divine didn't want to scout deeply. It seems to be maybe one of his weak points. And yeah, as people are saying, like, people are bringing up Divine's greed, and I think that's one of the big crippling weaknesses out of a lot of players that try to find success off a greed playstyle and fail, is they're not actually getting a reason to be greedy. They're not finding an excuse, right? Like, you know, you can argue that sometimes people misplay because they find the excuse, but like, you've got to read the situation correctly. You've got to have the info to make the justifiable choice. And Divine, if you just check his vision, How do you make any choices with this type of vision? I think it's something that holds a lot of HRE spammers back, is like not evolving past this pig-headed approach, I think, to the Civ. Matisse, on the other hand, surprise. I was so busy at that point, we didn't even get around to mention it. The guild hall's been built up. He's already teched up. Okay, Matisse is literally copy and pasting the same format from the last 2 maps, but the extreme version, right? Like game 1, he earned that aggro advantage and then used it for map control and took the relics. Game 2, he naturally used the HRE's greed against them. And game 3, he's doing the exact same thing. And what makes it worse for him with Divine is, look how many spears he built. This right here, this cost of spears, is his castle age. He built them to stop a knight. 1 knight. And he's still building walls. Oh, it just goes from worse to worse for him. Yeah, and Snoopert just confirmed, like, he studied the games as well. He saw the lack of scouting from Divine. I agree. It's, like I said, it's for, if you want to get, like, if you want to be next level HRE players, I genuinely think it's vision. That's why sometimes you'll see HRE players even go for a second scout if they know sheep are important in the map. But if you look at the way Beastie plays, I think Beastie is really good at tempoing his greed to grab more sheep and then his need to get information on his opponent. And he does this remarkably well. Like, he doesn't even have to run around the base a million times to always see everything. He'll just go in, glance, say, okay, this is what he's doing, this is his opening, and he'll back away. I think that's really how you one-up the HRE. You're saying this isn't a bad spot for the HRE. It's not exactly what you call a brilliant one either. Regnitz is going up. He only has 1 relic that's feasible right now. We are approaching a similar situation to what we just witnessed in the last game. And I love the play coming out from Matisse. Arbalatrier. Something that French players usually sleep on because they tend to mass knights. But this, in conjunction with Spearman, he's literally doing the same. He's doing the same thing, but it's actually better than the last game. Because in this game, Arbalatrier compared to crossbows are even more tanky. So you definitely, if you're the HRE player, can't even remotely think about range units. I mean, the grand scheme of things is it doesn't change the comps at all. In fact, something that is going to make this better for Matisse is if he gets his hands on the Gambesons. If you get the melee armor, this is going to be even more of a stomp if we follow suit of what we saw in the last game. And nothing's really changed from that one. Like, Divine's got a few more spears compared to the last game, but he's probably going to be going into Lansk. Wow. Okay, that actually doesn't make it better. That makes it worse. He's going archery range. Oh, man. So the only upside for Divine is if he builds archers, he's at least countering the spears. But you don't want to be in crossbows here. This is, once again, I'm just going to, like a broken record, but it's literally so clear what the cause and effect in this game is Divine's lack of scouting is leading to this. He's probably building crossbows here with double archery range. Because he's playing against French, so he expects knights. Everything he's building is to counter knights. And as a result, by the time he arrives to the first fight, he might be saying goodnight. Look at the count. 17 Arbalatrier. Spearman numbers are now escalating. Matisse, the only thing he's really missing here is like a keep drop, right? To make this more cost efficient. But why rush? Instead, he goes for the Siege Workshop. Let's be real, guys. If I show you like the top bars and it had generic unit types, in 5 minutes you would think that this is this. I show you only like the unit bars. You would think that this is game number 2 by Matisse's comp. Like, Matisse is literally countering everything Divine does the HRE with the exact same build. Yeah, I am once again asking him to scout his opponent, or at the very least, all chat type him and ask him what he's doing. You know. Hey, Matisse, you did the same build as last game, the one that completely destroyed me. No, that didn't sound convincing. I'm going to build something to counter that. Said not Divine. Instead, he's literally playing into Matisse's hand. I say literally because I know how to use that word correctly. I am using it correctly here because Divine DFP is about to get slapped. 4 relics for France? Exactly. What did I say? This is a carbon copy of game number 2. I think, for me, like, these are the only games I've seen recently in Divine DFP. But if this is the way he's playing the current meta, I don't expect him to do too well in tournament play next year. Unless the meta drastically shit. Like, if we go to next year, Golden League 2 comes around, and it's the same type of meta we're dealing with now, I think he's going to struggle greatly. Because I think high-level players are brilliant at using this greedy style against their opponent. You just give away too much map control. You can see what's happened here. Matisse played Boar, he played Deer, he got better TC drops, he's still playing more Deer. He's now playing into Relic Gathering and Sacred Sites. And Divine, meanwhile, has made the Great Wall of Holy. I don't know. This is looking pretty chalked. And you just got the bad news. Spearman Crossbow versus Spearman Crossbow. But Matisse, with a clear numerical advantage, and the better crossbow unit. And yes, folks, this is Tawny. This is the War Chief Club. We're doing a recap from the games played this weekend. After this series, we'll be doing the grand final between one of these two and Koinu. This is indeed a match point in this best of 3. Match starting to feel pointless for Divine. He's now going to be forced to go into archers as well. Sprinkles are at least being prepped as he sees Mango Nows in the field. So Matisse did switch it up this time. It's not just trebuchets anymore. Problematic for Divine, though. I'd actually just love to see a few horsemen possibly from Matisse, but seems he feels strong enough about his economy that instead he's just going to beat him to the punchline. And quite rightly so, right? Divine is now reactionary springholding, but he's doing so with one workshop. This is the worst thing you can do in the situation. If your opponent has a siege lead where they have a Maganel and a Treb in the field, pretty much any high-level player will understand that in these comps, you have to build a springhold. You have to protect your crossbows, right? So if you're the player with siege lead, you just dance the same tune. You just mirror springhold and springhold, and you stay ahead of it. Like, realistically, Matisse doesn't have to build any more Maganels. He just keeps building springholds and he has the edge. But the reality of this situation is because he went double siege workshop, he can build more than enough springholds and actually double his Maganel count, which will destroy the crossbow battalion. You are correct. France is stacking a lot of resources, but you have to wonder, is that just shifting resource lines? I think it might be. So Matisse, I don't expect him to go for a tech up. Probably just needs to shift his wood line in the next minute to allow more siege to come. You can see he's even trying to get these big upgrades like the greased axles. Sprinkles, that's a freebie. Divine, DFP, mistakes have been made. He's not reacting yet. In fact, Matisse, is he about to get both for free? Okay, peel back just in time. Outpost is going to be going down. Remember, this is a 1 Relic HRE versus 4 Relics and 3 Sacred Sites. Absurd amount of gold. Oh my good god. I mean, that rivals HRE getting all the relics on the map levels of play. It's grim, dark time for Divine DFB. He is up against 50 Arbitrae with no anti-club, no Langsnecht, no Maganels. Big clash now underway. Sprinkles are looking to trade out favorably here for Matisse. He just has way too many on his side. Divine DFP. Maganel's going to come to smash him. Visas will now be plopped down. He says, Divine, you need to run. Scream my name into oblivion. Because that's where you're heading. Second shot coming through. Divine DFP still trying to stand his ground. Archers at least somewhat helping for a moment. But as soon as they are reached by the Mangoes, they are done. And this siege workshop on the front line, I mean, it's even been sieged down. I would not be surprised if Divine DFP calls the game off this. But KP, the military numbers, they're not that far apart. That's not the important detail here, folks. It's the siege. Look at what remains. Trebuchet, Maganels, 5 Springles. Divine DFP is going to have to go full Divine here. He's going to have to summon the will of a god. He's going to have to have installed Age of Mythology before it's even released and somehow use the units from that, because there is no way anything not from the world of gods is going to turn this one about. He's even building men-at-arms against Arbitrae. 6.5 minutes away from a Sacred Site victory from Matisse. Matisse now gathering up stone. He's looking for a keep drop. Matisse. You know, people saying nice micro. Realistically, all he had to do is wait for his opponent to come in range, drops the Pavis. And this isn't to make it seem trivial. It's just This is how far ahead he is and how cut and dry it is in his eyes. He then just needs to be on point with targeting with the siege. Think of these Arbitrier like a wall. They are a wall of units. That's all they have to function as. The siege is what wins him the game. And this tech up might just be enough to force a declare of victory in his favor. I mean, we've got college artillery being built up. Divine DFP. There's like an unwritten rule for the HRE. If you get beaten during Imperial Age, the game is pretty much done. And the siege already in the field, this game is done. It's 3 mangoes, 6 springles, and a trebuchet like a cherry on top. This keep drop, that's not... Oh, man. I wonder if Divine DFP could see the whole map right now, would he just call it? He'll at least give one more fight. He's got one more in him. Pavisa's going to be dropped, though. Spring will trade out. Shall now commence. Mangonel shot's going to come in heavy. Divine DFP, no! He pushed himself up against the wall. It doesn't matter that he wins the Spring trade anymore. The problem is now the tech up advantage. Divine DFP overburdened himself into Springles. Matisse now reaches up. One Culverin will be enough to win the siege battle now. I don't know, man. I feel like Doctor Strange right now. I've peered in the future, and I've come back with the answer that there is no... Actually, no, there is one way. Matisse, if he disconnects. Even at that point, I think Matisse is that far ahead, you'd almost have to say, like, yeah, he wins even though he DC'd. You know, if you look at Divine's resource bank, he's got limited wood left, practically none, in fact. He's got 1 gold vein left as a civ that usually requires a lot of gold, right? Siege, crossbows, whatever you go for. Men at arms, Langsneck, all of it. He has no way of getting out of his base. That will crush him. What are we doing behind this anyway? Matisse, yeah, he's prepping for the long term. He's getting the discounts in the keep. First Culverin's about to hit the field, and this should be the point where Divine will realize he can't win fights anymore. It's the tower range, remember. It's 12 versus 10. Realistically, like, Matisse didn't even have to go Culverin. He could have just went Springolds, got shot triggers, bada bing, bada boom. In fact, yeah, he's got it now. Matisse going imp again. Pretty accurate, to be honest. He's like, am I China this? Oh, no, wait, no, I'm not. Oh, well. I guess I'll just sit on these resources. It's not like I've got anything else to do with it. That's it. He realizes that once he sees the shutter triggers, there's no way back in. Divine DFP will go out in joint third. Your grand finalists will be Matisse versus Koinu.